Hi, I'm Jeff Thompson with Thompson Air Hot Air Balloon Rides, and we're talking today with Expert Village about the areas of balloon flying. There are basically 4 different areas of balloon flying: commercial or corporate ballooning, recreational sport ballooning, competition ballooning, and ballooning as a business, as in passenger flights. I personally do the passenger flying and I do the competition balloon flying, but we'll talk first about commercial ballooning. Many of you that have been to a balloon event or a competition someplace have seen the corporate balloons, the Pepsi balloons, the Tony the Tiger balloons. Many different corporations sponsor balloons to represent their company because a balloon is a very impressionable item. People see the balloon and they remember for a long time, and it actually has a real festive atmosphere to it, so it's a great promotional tool. Sport ballooning or recreational ballooning, there are many pilots around the country that go out on the weekends and fly their balloon just like people go out camping or recreational RVing or canoeing or bicycling. There are many pilots around the country that are sport balloonists that go out and fly for the fun of it. There are also serious competition balloon pilots, pilots that use their skill to fly the balloons in different layers of wind to navigate to a series of targets on the ground. And there are many competition events around the United States, all over the country, culminating in the U.S. National Balloon Championships every year. Then there are businesses that fly balloons for passenger flights, which is what I do here in the Orlando area, where we go out daily and take passengers for flying in our balloons as a sightseeing tour. Well, we're getting ready to go fly this morning. So there are several steps we've got to take to get the balloon prepared for flight. Assembling the aircraft is the first step. Number one, we've got to put the burners on the balloon. So we lay our basket down on its side so that we can get to the position where the burners are going to be mounted. We slide the burners into the slots that are mounted and lock the locking pins in place. And when we're done with that, the balloon balloon burners are secure. Then we're going to remove the covers. And you'll see the most beautiful set of shiny burners underneath that bag. Once the burners have been mounted, then we've got to hook the envelope or the fabric part of the balloon to the basket. Open up the throat, or what we call the mouth of the balloon, and find the suspension lines. These are the steel cables that attach the fabric part of the balloon to the basket. Now, once the envelope, the fabric part of the balloon, is secured to the basket, then our ground crew can take the bag and lay the bag out on the ground, laying the entire balloon out in the field. Now we've got our balloon assembled. It's time to inflate the balloon. This is the process we call the inflation. We use a large engine-driven, gas-powered fan to fill this balloon with air. This fan is a 9 horsepower horizontal mount with a 30-inch propeller on it. This fan is capable of blowing 34,000 cubic feet per minute. It will actually take about 6 minutes to fill this balloon from top to bottom. During this process, while we hold open the throat of the balloon to fill the balloon with air, the ground team wanders up to the top of the balloon where they're going to install what we call the top cap or the parachute. The top of the balloon has a valve built into it, and this valve has a rope that comes down to the pilot in the basket that the pilot can use to let air out of the balloon to make the balloon descent a little faster or a little slower than it would if it cooled off on its own. We call this the maneuvering vent. Very handy to have when you're flying. Well, time to get this balloon stood up. We're going to turn on the fuel lines, engage the fuel tanks, and fire it up. This is the most critical time of the inflation process because at this point you can very easily damage your balloon by the immense heat these burners put out. As we add the heat to the balloon will slowly fill up to its full round shape. At this point our fan is still running, adding air to the balloon to fill it out. As that air adds, we add a little more heat and the balloon will slowly stand up and be ready for flight. One of the things, now that we've gotten ourselves in the air, we've got to land the balloon. Landing balloons is probably the most precise control that you'll do during the flight. Landing is not done by accidents. Pilots do their landings on purpose. Many people, when they see a balloon down low, assume they're in trouble, and that's not the case. Pilots have complete control over the balloon at all times. When we come in for landing, generally our chase crew is there to meet us. And as we bring the balloon down, we set the balloon down as gentle on the ground as we were when we took off. In fact, our poor cameraman this morning didn't even realize we had landed back on the ground. He had to look outside the basket to see if we were in contact with the ground or not. Once we've landed the balloon, then we begin our deflation process. Time to put our balloon down and pack it away. And about the only way you can do that is to literally squeeze the air out of the balloon. The pilot has already opened a deflation system in the top of the balloon to let the air out. As we squeeze out the air, our ground team mans the top of our balloon to help pull the sides in as we squeeze the air out. Once that's done, it's time to put it away, time to put it in its bag. And now it's time to bag the balloon. And we literally call this process bagging it, because we pretty much just pick the thing up and throw it in a big bag. Since we have time during the inflation of the balloon to check all of our rigging and wires and cables and controls, there is no particular way that we throw this thing in a bag. We literally just pick the balloon up and stuff it in a bag. At the end of putting the balloon into the bag, then we have this real complex procedure for getting the rest of the air out of the balloon bag so that we can pack it away. And that's basically what we do in this next scene. Have a look. One of the neat traditions of hot air ballooning is the after-flight champagne ceremony. Now, this ceremony started over 200 years ago in France. The ceremony was started by Joseph and Etienne Montgolfier in 1783. The tradition was started because in the early days, most landowners had no clue what a hot air balloon was. Quite often when the balloons landed, they were attacked by the landowners or local villagers. So the pilots began carrying champagne along with them to celebrate the flight as well as a peace offering for the landowners. And here we're having our champagne toast after our flight this morning. And toast goes like this. The winds have welcomed you with softness. The sun has blessed you with its warm hands. You have flown so high and so well that God has joined you in your laughter and set you gently back into the loving arms of Mother Earth. Cheers.